You got one of those.
We have 7 of those.
Is it the same one?
Very similar, yeah.
That's a Yorkie?
That's a Yorkie.
So you have a
cutie.
Yorkie.
Yeah.
Or are they Yorkie poos?
No, they're just Yorkies, not Yorkie poos.
So that's just a Yorkie?
That's just a Yorkie.
Okay.
It's a regular Yorkie with just.
Is that what they call them? Is just a Yorkie?
Just a Yorkie. Jorkie.
A Yorkie.
It's a Jorkie.
Hey guys, every deal that you do is going to have a major objection. Literally every single deal that you do will have a problem the seller has in their mind that you have to overcome every single time. I've never done a deal. I don't know about this man to my right, but we're gonna introduce him in a second. I don't think him or I or any real estate investor has ever encountered a deal that did not have an objection. And so that's why I brought in one of the biggest objection masters. The people who can overcome objections like nobody else is Mr. Daniel Quijano. What's up, dog? Good to see you.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
He came all the way in from Albuquerque, New Mexico, guys. They don't even have train stations there, so I don't even know how he got here.
I rode a donkey.
He rode a donkey to get here. So today we're gonna talk about the top seller objections, starting with this house. Unit number 30 is a deal that I bought just recently, about 2 weeks ago, closed on it, had a seller and an agent, okay? So agent had an objection and the seller had multiple objections. So let me tell you what they were. And then what we're gonna do is, after I tell you about the objections here, how I overcame them, Quijano, Mr. Dan, do you like being called Daniel or Dan?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Like the Bible, right? Dan is like Roseanne's husband. And I don't know that we are that, we have that much in common.
Okay, so Daniel, biblical, all right? Daniel Quijano is gonna list out 5 seller objections that you will run into, both in cash deals and creative finance deals. So the objection I had on this deal with the agent is a very common one. The agent had no idea what Subto was. Okay, so when you have an agent that doesn't know what Subto is, what I would do is I would push them to the YouTube channel, maybe show them what is Subto, how can Subto. We actually did a video recently with an agent that got paid on a Subto deal, and she went through and explained how she made way more money as an agent because she followed through with Subto than she would have with a cash deal. So send that to your agents. That'll help you overcome a lot of that stuff. That's why we built this YouTube channel, to help you guys on your guys' transactions. Now the seller had multiple objections. Number 1, how do I know you're gonna make the payments on this Subto deal? Okay, so the seller had a couple of objections. Number 1, what happens if you don't make my payments?
Yep.
So what I told the seller, like I tell so many sellers, is, well, if I don't make the payments, you get any down payment I pay you, any payment I made along the way, and you get the house back in the event that I get abducted by aliens or maybe even something worse. Seller says, well, how do I know if you're making the payments or not, since you're the one making them directly to my bank? I go, well, I'm not making them to your bank. This is his second objection. His second objection is, how do I know the payments are being made? So I told him about our servicing company. The servicing company pulls the money out of my account, puts it in their account, and then distributes that money over to his bank payment on the mortgage. That was objection number 2. Objection number 3 is he said, I don't want renters or other people in this property beating it up. And I go, well, why do you care? I'm the owner of the property at that point. And that is where I actually learned the real objection. The real objection is he didn't understand what Subto was.
Yep.
Okay, do you ever run into people that like start telling you, oh, my seller's having this problem, and you're like, man, I feel like that's not an objection they should be having. I feel like there's something else going on.
No, I think not only does that happen, I think that happens with a lot of new people who are going through these conversations and they get stuck and they're like, I don't understand why I'm not getting over this. It's because they're trying to, go in the house through the wall and not the door.
Right.
They don't know what's really happening. And I think there's something that I say in a lot of the trainings we do inside of Subto is that the sellers, they need 2 very important things to be able to go through with any transaction. And 1, it's trust. They need to trust you and be able to have the confidence that you can do what you say you're gonna do. And 2 is understanding. They need to understand what's happening. And I think a lot of us get lost in that understanding standpoint. We're explaining things from our perspective, but we're not taking the time to make sure they understand what we're explaining.
That's a great point. So what I had to do to overcome all of these objections, I said, all right, let's press the reset button.
Okay.
I went so far back that I actually, over the phone, reintroduced myself to the seller as, hi, my name is Pace Morby. I'd like to buy your house. It sounds like you're having a hard time because you have a lack of equity and you bought this house with an FHA loan.
Perfect.
I think I have a solution to your lack of equity problem. May I tell you what I believe my solution is? That's literally where I went after a 4-hour conversation. What happened is somebody, a wholesaler, brought this deal to me, dropped it in my lap and said, oh, he only has these objections. So I learned in that, even experienced at my level, I'm like, I need to stop when I get into a lead and go, all right, catch me up to speed. Where are we at from your perspective? Because what I did is I jumped right into the deep end, not realizing that they were still stuck in the shallow end.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
And that what you did with that reset is perfect because it's a pattern interrupt, right? I give this example all the times when we walk into a shoe store. You might be going into that shoe store to buy a pair of shoes. You know you're gonna have to ask the person at the counter to go back and get your size. But when you walk in and they say, hey, can I help you? What do you say? No, I'm just looking. Right?
Yeah.
Then you'll stop and you'll turn around and say, actually, I do need your help. Why? It's because human beings love to buy, but we hate to be sold. And so what happens is when somebody comes to us and when we're talking to a seller and we want to talk to them about their issue and helping them with whatever they're dealing with their problem, most of the time we're actually not talking to them. We're talking to that wall that doesn't want to get sold. So our job, and what you did perfectly with that reset, was bringing that wall down. Let's just start over. Let's make sure we're having the same, conversation here. I don't want to be pitching you. I want to be talking to you.
Right.
A lot of times we miss that.
Yeah, that's what I missed. The lead came to me assuming that the person that brought it to me had already done their job, right? They haven't been trained by Quijano. They haven't been trained by anybody that's an objection master. And so essentially they go, here you go, Pace. They have these objections. If you can overcome these objections, the deal is yours. And I was like, once I was in a little bit of a conversation, I go, oh, wow, we got to unravel this whole thing, come all the way back to the very, very beginning and start this process over. So I overcame it by making sure they understood the basics and why this strategy of Subject to could solve the problem that their agent couldn't solve. Now, here's what's funny. As I explained Subject to the seller, the agent was on the line as well. And the agent, I catch him go, oh, and he like all but catches himself and goes, oh, I get it now. Like I actually explained it wrong to my seller as well because I didn't really even understand it properly. So if you have an agent that doesn't understand what Subto is, send them to the YouTube channel, find one of the videos about, we actually just did a really great video with an agent. It was an hour long where we walked the agent through the paperwork, explained the benefits. That video is on the YouTube channel. It will help you with other agents. Then, if your agent understands it, they have the confidence to go and make sure their seller understands it, all right? So those are a couple objections. I really like what you talked about, is like making sure that you bring down that wall in the very, very beginning. What other objections do you find that people you're training right now are running into frequently?
Well, let's talk about the agent for a little bit, right? Because I think a lot of people now, especially with the change in the marketplace, are doing business with real estate agents. And then there's this gap when we're doing it because agents come from one perspective of the business and we come from a completely different one. And so I think a lot of times we assume that because they're in real estate, they understand what we understand.
Right.
And they know what we know and they don't. Right? And so what happens is there's, again, this gap in communication. I've had the same situation where you hear the light bulb go off, not only for the seller, but for the agent as well.
Oh,
exactly. Guys, these agents are professionals. They've been in the business for a very long time, some of them, and they do a great job at what they do, but they don't do what we do. So if we want to be successful at what we do, we got to figure out how to bridge that gap.
What's interesting is like, did you ever skateboard, rollerblade, or ride a BMX?
I was a rollerblade pro.
Okay.
An animal.
Amazing. So he's a fruit booter is what we call him. You never got called that?
I never got called that. No. Maybe I wasn't listening. I was going too fast.
That's what skateboarders and rollerbladers BMXers would call rollerbladers.
I'm gonna ask my lady to make me a shirt called Fruit Booter.
Fruit Booter.
Yeah.
All right. So what's interesting is like when I'm from an outside perspective, I see like the BMX, the skateboarders, the rollerbladers, all those guys all at the skate park all at the same time. And you think there's a harmonious relationship between all those people because they're all in real estate, right? Yeah. It's like the wholesaler, the agent, the buy and holder, the person that's buying and holding and doing all this stuff. You look at them all in a harmonious relationship, but then when you actually get to know them, Eric is a BMXer, Jose skateboards.
Wow.
They actually have a very angry relationship towards each other.
Interesting.
Because they come from different perspectives, even though they're in the same skate park.
Wow.
It's very, very interesting. Like they hate them because they think they hate them.
And what happens is they're in the same place and they're mad at each other because they feel like they're getting in each other's way.
Yeah.
Don't get in my fucking way, bro. Okay, calm down, bro. Don't get in my way one more time, bro. I swear to God.
Where if they actually talked and worked together, they could all have that harmonious relationship.
Am I right about this, Eric?
Nice. Look at his face.
It's weird, right? So it's the same thing with agents, wholesalers, people that are acquiring real estate like myself, Quijano. You're going to run into situations where the agent and you are not at each other's throat. You guys are actually on the same team. You just need to stop, make sure, and pause and make sure you guys understand you're not trying to make each other look bad. You're actually trying to make each other look good. When I'm working with an agent, I actually try and make them look like a hero in front of their seller, because what happens, this is an interesting thing with creative finance. I find myself being on three-way calls with agents and their sellers all the time in creative finance. When I was younger in the business, I would say stuff like, well, your agent doesn't know this, but your agent doesn't know this, but, and I would be explaining and unintentionally making this agent feel uncomfortable, feel stupid, etc. And guess what? How many times have I ever done a deal with those agents ever again? 0 times. I made them look stupid unintentionally. So you got to remember, you have to turn these agents into heroes so that one, the agent looks like a hero to the seller who made the decision to hire the agent, and the seller feels comfortable. I made a really good decision with this person. If you beat up an agent, you go, your agent's stupid, your agent's this, that, and the other, guess what? Your seller now is going to question their own ability to make decisions. Because they hired that agent. And now no matter what happens from the agent or your mouth, that seller's sitting there going, holy crap, I don't make good decisions. I hired bad people and I don't know who to trust.
And they're not going to trust you either. They're going to say, I need to take a step back.
They will not trust you
reset.
either. That's a really great point. So along those lines, make sure that you and the agent are on the same page and that you guys are not at each other's throats. You got to make sure you both look like heroes in the situation to make sure that the seller gets out of the situation.
Yeah, and guys, it's up to you, right? At the end of the day, you weren't born understanding everything about creative finance and investing in real estate, right? You had to start somewhere. You can be the somewhere for that real estate agent. So come waving the white flag and say, look, I'm here to help you. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. I'm just here to explain how mine works and to see if there's a way we can collaborate. I promise you, it'll make a lot of opportunities you didn't think were there.
Love that. Agents are your friends, especially right now. So really great advice. Another objection that we're running into, I'm seeing a lot of sellers are stuck in the 6 month ago price range. Okay. Now, there's a couple of ways to overcome this objection. Number one, maybe this is coming from a weak mindset. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that sometimes a seller that just wants a price from 6 months ago, they just haven't had enough time to come to terms with the fact that the market's changed. Again, they're not you, they're not me, they're not you, they're not in the market all day long. That's not what they talk about. We have a pulse right on the market. We know what's going on. So don't judge a seller that wants too much money for their house. In our CRM, right, our customer relationship manager, we see that the majority of our deals are coming from well over 10 follow-ups. But I do see a lot of newbies that are calling a seller, they have a minor objection and they go, how do I overcome this objection? Like, how many times have you talked to the seller? Well, 1 time.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, part of overcoming objections is building rapport and trust, like Quijano said. How can you build rapport and trust in 1 5-minute phone call when you said, hey, will you sell your house to me? My name is Pace, right? You got to give that some breath and give that some growth in that relationship. And that's why follow-up is so important.
Yeah. No, there's a phrase that says that if you've been in sales for any period of time, it's called the fortunes in the follow-up. And it couldn't be more true. Each industry has its own statistics, but anywhere from like 6 to 10 contacts or more is really when you're getting into the relationship phase of that conversation. Anything before that, you can still close deals without question.
Ooh, this is a really good one. So check this out. I'm glad you're bringing this up. So I got a text today from somebody who's followed up with me so many stinking times. Okay, so check this out. I don't care if we put their information on the thing. Okay, so September 27th, October 13th, today, 2 times. They sent me a text today, 2 times. Have I replied back to them 1 time?
Nope.
Okay.
But you're talking about them right now in a video.
Right. This is another thing, okay? This is another thing about follow-up that people don't understand. In the 1950s, people were not as busy as we are today. Our lives are chaotic. Like, it's crazy how chaotic our lives are. I have not blocked this person or said, leave me alone. If I haven't said that, that means I'm still baked. Or it means I'm still like ready for a relationship. I look at them frequently. And you know what the problem is? Let's look at the problem. When are they following up with me? 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 9 o'clock in the morning, and 11 o'clock in the morning. Do I look like a guy that has time at those times in the morning?
Nope.
No. So when you're following up with sellers, sometimes they're ghosting you because they're not ghosting you. They're just busy. And you just need to change up the times that you're following up with them to approach them at areas that might not be as busy. Early in the morning, late at night, Saturdays, sometimes even Sundays at midday. Try different times to follow up and you'll touch base. I look at that text, I go, oh, I mean to text you, but I might be in the middle of a YouTube video, middle of a seller call, middle of raising capital, middle of doing something else. Guys, this is why follow-up is so important, is you gotta keep staying on top of them. I fully intend on doing business with that person, but this is the other thing I love about follow-up, is it shows consistency and reliability. I can rely on this person because I can see how many times they're gonna consistently follow up with me to earn my business. Your sellers are no different. If you follow up 1 time, would you do business with you? I wouldn't. I want to do business with people that have shown consistency and reliability.
Yeah. Guys, so everybody who just listened to this, stop for like 1 second and listen back to what Pace just said. He just explained the perspective that a lot of you guys are in every single day with your conversations. And you're saying, well, I don't want to be the annoying person. I don't want to bother him. I don't want to do this. But you're putting your brain inside of that seller or that prospect's head. But here you have a prospect, live and in person, saying, no, I'm actually interested in this. It's not that I don't want to talk to them, I just don't have time, right? So you have to realize when you're talking to these people, don't assume you're making them mad. Your job is not to read their mind. Your job is to follow up consistently until they tell you to stop. And then maybe a couple more times after that, right? But don't give up. Continue doing it because you don't know what they're dealing with until you talk to them. And I promise you, what Pace said is exactly true. When you start doing things, especially when you're dealing with busy people, they respect people who are consistent, not people who are just, flashing the pans. They sound really good for 5 seconds, but then they never follow up. Be the consistent person. Be the one that stands out.
Especially in creative finance. With creative finance, you're establishing a long-term relationship, especially like on unit number 30 here. This guy and I bought his property subject to, which means his mortgage, his credit is going to be at risk for an extended period of time, 5, 10, 15 years, maybe even more. I think getting into a contract with me would require multiple follow-ups, multiple conversations to build up enough rapport and trust to be able to say, I'm okay with leaving my mortgage in my name, even though you have the deed and control of the property, because you showed me your consistency, your reliability through multiple follow-ups, and you've shown me more than these other. This was the interesting thing when I bought this deal. I said, well, why didn't you figure this out with other investors? They go, well, because they never called back. I told them what I wanted and they never called back. The wholesaler that we worked with, kudos to them. They didn't do a good job of explaining creative finance, but kudos to them. They followed up like 6 or 7 times before they got me involved. And so the trust and rapport and the foundation was already built, which was cool.
Yeah. No, that helps a lot. And guys, you're gonna need this because right now, as Pace mentioned a couple minutes ago, there's a transitionary period in the market. You have a lot of people who are a little bit lost as to what to do. Not only people who are in real estate, but especially the homeowners who are just trying to figure out what their next step is. You have a decent portion of these sellers who were only selling because the market was hot. And now they're realizing, okay, I missed my window, screw it, I'll just stay here. But then there's these other ones who need to move. They're frustrated because they missed out on their opportunity. They don't know what's going on. And you need to be that voice of reason in the midst of all of this. And all the more reason in these circumstances that you need to be reliable and consistent. And the advice that I'm giving right now in this marketplace is a couple of things. Is one, just be the friend. Right now, people need somebody to talk to because it may be another month and a half before they let reality of the market sink in and say, okay, now I need to know what decision I'm gonna make. Who are they gonna sell to? The random new person that calls or the one that's been talking to them for 6 or 8 weeks consistently saying, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. What are you dealing with? Here's what's going on, right? Another thing, which we've been actually using a lot for people who are interested in selling, they need to sell now, is option contracts, right? And so what we're telling people is, look, and for me, if you don't know what an option contract is,
I wouldn't tell them. Don't tell them. We'll do another video about option contracts. Quijano and I will do a follow-up video all about option contracts so we don't deviate, and then we'll give Quijano two videos on the same channel.
There you go, and then you'll help Pace at 200,000 subscribers.
Yeah, in one video.
Exactly. So yeah, what we're doing is using option contracts, and I like to be really transparent in the option contracts. I tell them exactly what my intention is here. Look, this is what you're saying. Here's what I'm seeing. There's a gap, but I could be wrong. So how about you let me go to work for you? Let me do this, give me a couple weeks, let's go see what I can find out. And what I do is when they give me that option contract, I'm going and I'm trying to find buyers at their price. But every single time I get an offer, I'm going and saying, here's the offer, here's the offer.
Here's what the market's telling us. Here's what the market's telling us. And what's brilliant about an option contract is he's not the one beating them up on price. He's letting a third party, the market, to beat them up on price.
Yep. And then at that point, it really makes them real, because you never want to be the bad guy. Sometimes you have to be, you got to be willing to when it's time. But if you can let the market, any third party, be the bad guy and you're just the messenger, it really helps. And then they sit back and they're like, well, okay, the market's saying what it's saying.
Guys, this works in marriage too. Just let me tell you something. If you tell your wife this, and this, hey, we need to do this with blah, 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 it's gonna go right out the other ear, right? But if your wife's best friend says, hey, do this, and this, all of a sudden it's getting done and you're like, she's like, oh yeah, my friend told me this, that, and the other. I was like, oh my gosh.
But when I said it.
But when I said it. So it's the third party, right?
Yep.
That validates what you're already saying. And genius, this is where option contracts come in. I actually think, here's what I think we should do with this video. Guys, down below, tell us your biggest objection, right? You've ran into sellers, whether it's the due on sale clause, or they want too much of a down payment, or a seller wants too high of interest rate, or a seller wants too short of a balloon, whatever it is. Quijano and I will do multiple follow-up videos about how to overcome seller objections, not just with creative finance, but cash and those types of things. And we'll have a lot of fun in future episodes with Mr. Quijano. So you have a YouTube channel yet?
I do.
Okay, what is it?
I do. I don't even know how to hyperlink it.
We're
gonna put the link down there. I have an Instagram though. Guys, if you see me on social media, it is largely due to the influence of this man right here. So say thank you, Pace, for encouraging me to get off my butt and do the things.
So guys, we want to help you out with the seller objections, especially right now with creative finance. So make a comment down below. Definitely hit the like button. Say your biggest seller objection, and we'll compile those. And whatever the top 10 are, we'll put them together and we'll make a full longer video of how to overcome those top 10 seller objections. We out.